Hi, it's Jade Edwards, Clovis Unified PBIS Coordinator.
Hi, I'm Sahiane, PBIS Coach.
Hi, this is Carrie Machado, PBIS Coach.
Hi, this is Tiffany Maston, PBIS Coach.
And today we're going to be talking about ways that you as parents can use different supports and strategies to help your students that may be dealing with anxiety. Now, some of these supports may look familiar from our last video if you watched it on students with attention difficulties, but we're going to break it down and show you how some of these skills will apply to supporting students that have anxiety as well. I'm going to talk to you about Tier 1 basic supports. You're going to be hearing a lot about tiered systems today, just like we talked about in our prior video on ADHD. Tiered is maybe a word you have heard at your student's school site, but basically our tiered levels of supports go from Tier 1 on up to 2 and 3, and basically it's just an increase in frequency and intensity of the strategy or support. So in a Tier 1, for children who are dealing with difficulties of anxiety, basically it's for those children who can more independently identify feelings of anxiety. They can identify what is making them stressed or anxious, so they can identify those triggers, as well as independently selecting coping strategies within their environment to help calm. So again, here is a list of many different interventions, and Jade definitely talked about how some of these are prior supports that we talked about for ADHD as students. But some of the ones that I want to touch on, there's just a couple, some new ones that we've added. One of the things that is definitely important when dealing with anxiety, especially when trying to sit down and complete tasks that may also trigger anxiety, is really designating a workspace within a calming environment. So just making sure that our surroundings are calming, there's not a lot of activity going on or other things that might increase that anxiety in your child. Another thing that's really important is really making sure throughout the day that we are including that physical activity, that we're making sure that our children are eating well-balanced diets, having good sleep habits. All of this is just really crucial in maintaining, the ability to concentrate and develop stamina and complete our work task and get things done throughout the day. And it has been known to also be effective in reducing anxiety as well. And then another thing that's just really important is really working on growth mindset. So it's really helping your child change those negative thoughts into more positive ones. So not that I can't do this, but I can't do it now. So really just changing the way in which they're thinking. And the more that they can change those thoughts into positive thoughts, the more that they start to believe those. And it will definitely help their outlook on things as well as decrease that anxiety behavior.
Here's a Tier 1 practice that you can use at home. It's called the worry scale. The worry scale can help you and your child navigate different worries or challenges they might be going through, especially in today's ever-changing world. The first step is to identify different things that might cause worry. Try to list maybe 4 or 5 different things that might cause worry. The next step is to figure out how worried or scared do these thoughts make you feel. Once you're able to do that, you might be able to customize some different coping strategies or problem-solving solutions when communicating with your child at home.
When we look at Tier 2 supports, we're looking at how do we intensify and more individualize some of those supports for kids that have a harder time managing their anxiety on their own. And so this may manifest in a higher intensity of behaviors. So what we want to do really is help our child identify what are the things that cause them to be most anxious. And then before we even get into those anxious situations, we practice and teach and model how we handle those situations before we even get into them. So if we're already in an escalated emotional state, if I'm already feeling super anxious about something and you tell me to deep breathe and I've never practiced that before, it's not going to be a really helpful strategy. So if we're looking at a student that is really going to be using those techniques on a regular basis, we want to make sure that they have opportunities to practice when they're in a calm and regulated state of mind. Another thing that's really helpful is just creating some type of structure and routine, because anything that is consistent and stable is also a way to be able to reduce any signs of anxiety. So a daily schedule is great with built-in breaks. So I know once I get through this challenging assignment or task, I know a break is coming and I'll be able to de-escalate and regulate myself. Check-off lists are great to feel like I'm making momentum and progress. And then always, as the parent, remember that you are also modeling what it looks like to manage and regulate your emotions. So use that external monologue of what's going on inside as you're dealing with stressful situations, maybe when you're in traffic or having to deal with a frustrating phone call. Talk about what that's like and how do you as an adult cope and regulate as you're going through that situation, because that is also a teaching moment for your child.
Here's a Tier 2 problem-solving strategy to help you and your child with anxiety. The first step is to break down your thought. What is the thought behind the worry? What's causing it? Once you're able to identify that, follow the next 5 different questions to help guide your problem-solving process and deconstruct that thought. What is your thought based on? Is it an actual feeling or a fact? Is it possible that the thought might come true? What's the worst that could happen if it did come true? Will it still matter to you tomorrow or in the future? What can I do to handle the situation in a positive way? Having a dialogue with your child using these guided questions can help reduce the anxiety and help you find a problem to it.
Another great strategy to help reduce anxiety in your child is to work with them on deep breathing techniques. This is a visual that was taken from the centervention.com website and is definitely a place or resource that I do recommend that you look into. But deep breathing is very helpful in that it supplies more oxygen to the body that allows your child to process and think better and also problem solve. Sometimes it's also helpful if you pair a visual with the deep breathing, such as smelling the flowers and blowing the bubbles.
Another great strategy that you could use to help your child relax when they're feeling anxious is hand or body clenching. So when we're feeling anxious, our body naturally feels very tense, and the best way to help relax it is to be able to go through somewhat of a progressive muscle relaxation technique. So you can do this throughout your entire body, starting from the toes all the way up to the head, or in this visual, it's just with your hands. So you're able to clench your fists as tight as you can, hold for at least 5 seconds, and then release that tension. The last level of interventions and supports that we're going to discuss today is our Tier 3 interventions. These are often the most intensive forms of support. This is usually for students who have a very difficult time identifying their anxious feelings, maybe not having very much luck in being able to identify the triggers that cause them, or even being able to choose the coping strategies that are best going to manage those feelings. So some of these interventions are discussed in previous videos, but the ones that we're going to highlight today is looking at creating a relaxation kit. So if we're teaching these students the coping strategies, they're also going to need kind of like a menu to be able to go through and choose from of what they feel is going to be most beneficial in that moment. Some examples that are listed here are coloring books, playing with clay, maybe an enjoyable book that they like to read, or listening to music. A lot of the time, these coping strategies have not yet been taught to these students, so you're going to want to make sure that you are teaching them to them ahead of time, and then also working through these strategies as the student is feeling these feelings and choosing these coping strategies. As a parent, you want to pay very close attention to their anxiety levels throughout the day. If you notice that a child is amping up in their feelings, then you want to be able to check in and maybe even encourage them to choose from their coping list because they may not be ready to make that decision on their own. You can also do this using an emotional thermometer, being able to have your student kind of choose on the thermometer where they're feeling at that moment, and then having those coping strategies listed below would be most beneficial. So this slide is a really great example of a menu for coping strategies. As a family, you'll be coming up with coping strategies that are best going to help with your child's anxious feelings. You really want to focus on their strengths and interests because this is supposed to be naturally calming for them. Some of the examples listed below are doing the deep breathing exercises, maybe some outdoor activities, or maybe art or journaling. Once you've created that list, then you can go through together and match the coping strategies that are best going to go with the intensity of feelings. As a parent, you can notice that your child's anxious feelings are amping up throughout the day and help encourage them to go through and choose at what intensity level their anxious feelings are and go through the list of what would be most beneficial for your child at that moment.
We hope that you found this installment of PBIS at Home helpful. And next week, we will be talking about how you can support students that may be struggling with oppositional behaviors and noncompliance. Thank you and have an awesome day.